Mallarmé had said that Poe's intention was donner un sens plus pur au mot de la tribu. But my God, when you read the language, he's giving a new sense to the words of the tribe. Can this be possible? Did he obfuscate, not purify, the language of the human tribe in order to disembody language from its gross hunks of meaning? For the narrator is a ballad singer. The ballad singer of the Raven, although Poe very cleverly doesn't have him begin his ballad as though he's aware of the fact, he is insane with grief and frustration. The ballad he sings shows us how it happened. In the course of his own ballad, he traces the inexorable course of his condition from his initial weakness and weariness through his regretful grief at the death of Lenore to a frenzied and masochistic persecution of his own soul. The plot of the ballad is, this is the way the narrator went mad for grief of Lenore. All this is told in stanzas which combine inexorable metrical regularity with a rhyme and interior rhyme scheme of fiendish complication, everything not only ending with but tending toward the one unbending, shiver-sending word in the refrain, nevermore. Edgar at last has written a poem based upon the repetition of a single word, that word said o'er and o'er until its meaning becomes as nothing or legion. The mesmeric spell of the same repeated syllables overpowering the mind of his narrator, the sonorous chiming and sorrowful repetitions of nevermore, sweeping away all propensity for independent thought. Thus, the mind of his narrator and of his reader, me, is paralyzed by all those nevermores. They work their spell all the more inexorably because spoken by no one, spoken by a bird, the only bird, save for the parakeet in another poem of his, with the power of imitating human speech. The bird repeats its one-word glossary of woe with an insane regularity, a regularity which invites the still madder plausibility lent it by the narrator's arranging his questions not only so that they occupy the regularly spaced interstices between the bird's cacophonous utterances, but arranging them so that the raven's single word becomes a lingua franca of an oracular world, giving the inevitable reply as though decreed by the fates to the increasingly self-lacerating and desperate questions of its interlocutor. Or so it seems, as long as we willingly sink into the intellectual stupor which Edgar Poe's pounding rhythms and clanging rhymes are intended to produce in us. Just let your mind fight back just a little against the maniacal regularity, the hypnotic fanfare in which the same combination of rhyme recur with the inexorability of a Chinese water torture. Just resist the spell a little bit, and the whole contraption suddenly comes apart at the seams. You shake your ears and your tongue gasps for fresh breath. What an imposture! Are we supposed supinely to admit the plausibility of a raven knocking on the door of a lonely chamber on a stormy night, entering as the door is flung open, installing itself upon the bust of Pallas, and forever croaking, nevermore? Let's see. I must say that Shawnee has anticipated what I've just said about the raven being essentially a poem for performance. Did everybody hear me well back there? Okay. Once, upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, that it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, or "Madam." That's hilarious. "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped the stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art surely no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave us, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster till his songs are one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing. To the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core, this and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed as from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by the angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within that distant Eden it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked up starting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.